Welcome to 100 Lunches. I'm Jessica Nelson.
And I'm Stephanie Lindsay. We're the founders of Etch Design Group.
Each episode, we'll have intimate conversations that transcend the usual lunch meeting. We'll dig into the lives of fascinating people in the design industry, and we'll ask the big questions, the small questions, and maybe even a few that sound like it came straight from a fortune cookie.
Our vision for this podcast is to uncover the hidden gems in what led each of our guests to their calling in life, from childhood dreams to favorite lunchtime meals.
Buckle up, you're in for a treat. Welcome to episode 6. Today we are joined by Burgoon Nolan of Studio Burgoon here in Austin. Allie is an interior designer here in Austin and a native Chicagoan. Allie grew up in a large, close-knit family with German, Irish, and English roots. Before starting her practice in 2023, Allie built a strong foundation in luxury residential design under Fern Santini of Austin and worked in hospitality design with the Getty's group of Chicago, Gensler here in Austin, and also the Bunkhouse group of Austin. Lots of big names here. She has a bachelor's of science in architectural studies from the University of Missouri and is an NCIDQ certified registered interior designer. We are so excited to have you on the show with us today, Allie, and to learn more about you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for the warm welcome, Jess. I'm so excited to chat with you both today.
Yes, too.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. I am so curious to know about your childhood. So we know you grew up in Chicago. What was it like growing up there? What were your passions early on in life?
Yeah, so big family, 5 kids in 6 years. My parents are crazy. And so it was just always, a madhouse, but we loved it so much. We're as adults now, we're all like super, super close. But yeah, so I'm in the middle. I have an older sister, older brother, younger sister, younger brother. So I have one of everything. And us girls, we kind of all did, similar things. We were involved in dance and cheerleading, and I did choir, band, orchestra, like all those kind of creative outlets growing up. And yeah, I always loved creativity, but we went to a really big high school. I graduated with 700 kids in my grade. And so I felt like because I wasn't like the best at the creative stuff, that it wasn't really a path for me. So that was just kind of like an interesting thing in childhood. Like my parents were always, so supportive and everything, but in my surroundings, I wasn't like the top of all those creative endeavors. So I just going into college just didn't think it was for me. So I actually started majoring in broadcast journalism and kind of took a pivot at some point. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I feel like that's such a recurring story of like, you don't really think that like the creative field is where, you belong. Like it's always kind of a business driven thing whenever we think about college. It's so interesting to me. Yeah.
Totally.
So what led you to the switch to interior design? Like what was your calling where you said, okay, I'm not in the right place. I need to be in the right place. What made that pivot for you?
Yeah. So I went to Mizzou, which is one of the best journalism programs. And once I got to college, I wanted to be a journalist since I was in 6th grade. I remember watching the Olympics. I love the Olympics. And seeing them interview all these athletes. I was like, that is what I want to do. But the bottom of it was really that I love to talk. And so I was like, I want to get paid to talk to people. Like, that's what I love so much.
Yeah.
And telling their stories. And once I got to college and was surrounded by hundreds of kids who had that same passion, I was like, oh gosh, I don't really want to compete with all these people. And this was like a decade ago. We didn't know, more than a decade ago. We didn't know how the journalism industry was going to change. It was already rapidly changing. And so I realized that I wasn't passionate enough about it to do it for an entire career. So I was kind of like at the drawing board, like, wow, I worked so hard to get into one of the best programs and like, shoot, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So I went to the counselor and I was like, okay, this is not what I want to do, but I really love travel. I could do something with that. I love photography and I'm interested in interior design. I didn't really know anything about it. In high school, I took a sustainability class and we designed a green roof for a commercial project. And I was like, this is really cool. And sustainability was, a huge conversation at that time. And so I was like, maybe I could do something with sustainable design. So that was kind of my foray into interior design. And then the other reason was that it was a true 4-year program and I was already a semester behind. So I was like, okay, that's where I want to be. I gotta get going now because I'm already behind.
Sure.
So yeah, I switched over to the interior design program. Started with taking some studios. Felt like a total novice in the beginning with drawing and building models and stuff. But the nice thing about that is everyone was starting from square one in the program. It's
Right.
not like it was in some AP art class and everyone was already like perfect at it, which is what high school kind of felt like in my creative classes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get just kind of on a whim, which is funny because I feel like most interior designers are like, I wanted to do this my whole life. And I'm like, that wasn't me. I just kind of found it.
Yeah. I get that completely. Very similar story. So
Yeah.
so once you went to school for interior design and got
Mhm.
your degree, tell us kind of where you went from there and what your
Yeah.
transgression looked like.
Yeah. So I had a few different intern experiences when I was in college. One was for a kitchen and bath designer in the town I grew up in, which didn't feel like the right fit because it was just a lot of like cut and paste, rinse and repeat. And I was interested in, more pushing the envelope and things. And
Mhm.
so my next opportunity was with a commercial interior design firm, huge company. I worked on like Bank of America office and an Amazon office. So that was like the coolest of cool in the commercial world. And that was also pretty boring to me. So then I got to senior year and I was like, dang, I've had 2 internship experiences that I just didn't love. Like, did
Yeah.
I make a mistake here? But then I was like, okay, the next thing that I haven't tried that is interesting to me is hospitality design.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, I was already a semester behind. So I graduated in January or December of 2013. And that January, I started with the Getty's Group in Chicago, which is a hospitality design firm. And I loved it. It was just everything I was hoping design would be. So
Mhm.
that was like, felt like such a blessing at the end. Like, okay, I did choose the right thing here. And after my internship ended, I went full time with them. And I just had the best first few years of my career. It was such a great foundation for where I'm at now.
Through the different experiences, how
Mhm.
did you know, okay, this one is the turning point. This one feels right.
Yeah, so, I mean, hospitality, I still love it so much. It's the best sector because in a hotel, you have everything. You
Yeah.
have fitness centers, business centers, obviously guest rooms, which are like residential, restaurants, bars,
Mhm.
spa, hotel, like you have everything in a hotel.
Yeah.
Every part of every kind of design is within a hotel. And the best thing about hotels is you want it to feel like home, but you want it to be a unique, memorable experience. You get to move the needle in ways a little bit differently in hospitality because you want someone to walk away and remember that experience and share it with others.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything about hospitality is with design is just so exciting to me. And now they're so interwoven. Residential and hospitality, they go hand in hand
Mhm.
completely. Like everyone wants their home to feel like their favorite hotel and their favorite experience. They want to bring that back home with them, but they also want that in their hotels. They want their hotel to feel like home. Um, so yeah, they go hand in hand, but that's why I love them both so much.
It's so interesting that you say because we've actually had clients recently say, I want this to feel like my favorite hotel here.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
can you match the experience that we had at this hotel? And so there's been a lot of that travel influence and I think just almost a getaway from
Yes.
life in
Mhm.
general and feeling like when they come home that it's something that is rejuvenating to them and kind of a little mini vacation from the reality of work and what's happening in the world day to
Totally.
day.
Totally. And I love the opportunity also of creating, mini niches and zones within your home that feel like that really cool bar that you went to in
Mm.
Milan, and then create like a record room that's inspired by that. Like your whole home doesn't need to feel like a hotel, but you can create these moments of interest that are inspired by places you've been.
Hmm. So, what led you to the next stepping stone? Because you didn't stay there.
Yeah.
So, tell us about the next move.
Yeah, so Getty's was great. I was there for 5 years. It was an amazing start to my career. We were working really long hours, working really hard on tons of different projects. So I was at the Getty's Group for 5 years. We were working on boutique and select service hotels. So anywhere from like a 3-star to a 4.5-star property, which I really found that I loved the boutique hotel projects that I was on. And my husband got a job in Austin. We were looking for a move. We grew up in Chicago. We were excited for something new. But in my mind, hospitality, I was like, LA, New York, Miami are kind of the main places to go. And we landed on Austin. So I at first was like, great, there goes my career. But no, that was not the case at all. I was totally proven wrong. So when I got to Austin, Gensler at the time was working on a huge project that actually just opened like a month or two ago. So this was 6 years ago now. That's how long some of these projects take. And they were working on a 1,000 key hotel in Atlanta. So coming from the Chicago hospitality sector, I had a ton of experience, and Austin is not a main spot for hospitality design. So I got in touch with someone and they were like, we really need some help on this huge project. The Atlanta office and Austin office were doing it together. So I was probably at the time one of the more experienced designers on it, even though I only had 5 years of experience. And I would travel to Atlanta and help their team there with building out this project. But anyway, I knew though that in my heart, boutique hotels were where I wanted to be. So I met my Bunkhouse boss at a conference, and at that time she was hiring. When I first got here, they weren't hiring, but then they were hiring. And so I made the switch over to Bunkhouse. When I was at Getty's, I worked on a boutique hotel in Buffalo, New York with a really strong ownership group. And I learned through that experience, that was my favorite projects that I'd worked on. And it was really because an ownership team that cared a lot more about how the project, doing it right and being intentional and really caring about creating something wonderful for the city. And so that's what was interesting to me about going to Bunkhouse, is they are an operator, which is different than an ownership group, but they have so much heart and soul in their properties, and they care about doing things right, and they care about creating legacy properties, like properties where you're not just renovating every 5 years, which is very typical in the hospitality design space. So I was thrilled that they were hiring, made the switch over to them. And yeah, we worked on, my main project there was opening the Hotel Magdalena. So that is in Austin on South Congress. And I also helped out with a bunch of other projects, and they are constantly working on their existing properties as well. So that was really cool to see. Okay, in hospitality design, we would hand it over and disappear. I never heard how that chair held up, or was that bar used in the way we thought, or I never got to see the like end result in use and learn from the staff and the client how it all worked out. So that's what I loved so much about Bunkhouse, is I actually got to see the life of a property and how it could evolve, and how can we help, keep that brand story going while it's, a fully functioning hotel or restaurant or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like those are all such great firms to work for, especially like starting out and, kind of having your first 5 years in Chicago at the Getty's Group, and then going to Gensler and then Bunkhouse. Like those are all, I feel like, very big hitters, in terms of the commercial world. And then talking about your next move over to Fern Santini, I definitely want to hear about that. But I think it's interesting that Fern is kind of where you chose, because I feel like her spaces are so curated, and they're very, like, you talk about hospitality design and, creating these moments. I feel like Fern is the master at that. So yeah, I'd love to hear how that transition came about.
Yeah. So I kind of always was like, hospitality forever. I love hotels. I love restaurants. Why would I do anything else? This is so great. And an opportunity at Fern came up, and she had just probably 6 months prior opened the Meadowbank project. They were calling it Austin in Stereo. I think you can Google that.
Yep.
And it was just, to me, like mind blowing. Because to me, I always felt like, residential is cool, but hotels are cooler. But then I saw that project by Fern, and that totally changed my mind. And since I've realized a lot of residential projects are under NDA and you will never see photos of them. So
Right.
there are some seriously cool things happening in the residential world that we'll just never know about. Whereas, a hotel, obviously there are a website and photos, but then people are going and they're posting on Instagram. And so like you can get every photo you would ever want of a space without going. But, people's residences, you either see it in a magazine or you go to their house or you don't see it at all.
Yep.
And so when I saw that Fern project, I was just like, okay, residential seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Austin has been blowing up, is still blowing up, was blowing up at that time in the residential space. And so I thought if there's ever a time to try out residential, now is it. And Fern is who to do it with here in Austin. So yeah, I made the switch over, and like I said, there's a lot of similarities between residential and hospitality. So it was a pretty swift transition. But I will say, if I hadn't been at Bunkhouse before, if I had made the switch from Gensler to Fern, that would have just been like,
Yeah.
holy smoke, this is like crazy different. But Bunkhouse was a perfect stepping stone because it's a smaller boutique type of company, and so it like helps bridge the gap between the differences, at least from like a back end admin technical standpoint, between residential and hospitality. So yeah, so I was at Fern for a year, and I wish I had more time there. I learned so much. She's an incredible visionary. At that time in my career, I was really seeking working under a female entrepreneur. I just really missed that mentorship that I had at some of my previous opportunities. And at that point, I knew I was like getting more interested in wanting to eventually start my own firm one day. And so I wanted to just learn from someone who I thought was doing something pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
just work with someone who's so incredibly talented that I admire so much.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. We did some really fun things together. So it was a wonderful experience. And I thought I would launch a firm when I was, like 10 more years down the road. I
Yeah.
had no intention of launching it when I did. I launched it in 2023, January 1st, 2023. So a year ago. But yeah, I had a past client who I loved working with, and I kind of in the back of my mind thought, okay, if they ever approach me about doing anything together, that'll be my sign that I should go off on my own. And so that sign came, 1 year after being at Fern. And I was like, no, sign, go away. This is not the time. I'm not ready for this. But yeah, when you've got an opportunity like that with someone you really love working with, someone who respects and appreciates you and trusts you, especially in our design world, that's like the most pivotal building blocks of a client relationship. So I kind of knew that was going to be the seed to my business, and I just had to go for it. And if it doesn't work out, I can turn back. Like there's always other opportunities to go to, but I just knew that I had to just do it for myself. I had to take that risk and just see where it could go.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's awesome. When you were in college deciding to make the transition to interior design as your major, did you have that inkling that one day you would own your own business? Like, has it been there the whole time, or just
None.
throughout the years, that's when it came?
Definitely not. I mean, in my when I was in college, I just wanted to work for a really, really cool firm. That was my goal, to just work for someone who's doing amazing things. I love being a part of a big team. Being from a big family, like I love just getting in the trenches with other colleagues, and that can be designers, but that can also be trades and vendors. Like I just love being a part of a really big team. So I always saw myself at a big firm. I never thought I'd be somewhere small or start my own thing. And that was actually one of the things that in my mind, I was like, well, I'm not going to start something for a long time because I love being a part of a big team. And currently I'm a team of one. And guys, I love it.
Yeah.
It's like way better than I thought it would be. I mean, I'm looking to start growing my team, but it was really important to me to do all aspects of running a design business myself for as long as I could, because I know how important it is to really know every aspect of it, so that when I do bring others in, I can, of course, train them, but also have oversight over everything. I've seen so many design business owners come into some nightmare situations because they just let the reins go and they didn't quite know how to do something and they trusted someone else too much. So I really wanted to roll up my sleeves and do as much as I could for as long as I could. And I'm really trying to lay the foundation for my process.
Mhm.
I want to have that kind of hammered out in the way that I want it before I bring someone else in. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going well. I'm excited to be a part of a big team again soon, but yeah, it's been
Yeah. So how do you stay connected? I know it's super easy when you're working by yourself to kind of be in this little secluded world where it's just you
Mhm.
every day and the client, and you're kind of burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah,
What is it? What do you do to kind of get out and just be around other people and create that sense of community that you it's hard to have whenever it's just one person.
totally. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have that all the time with me. I'm an extrovert, you can probably tell. And I just, it's just part of being me is having surrounding myself by other creatives who are doing really cool things too. And Instagram, I've built a little community over there just with people in the DMs. I
Mhm.
love just chatting and connecting with people about things in the DMs. And so I feel like I've got a nice little community over there. But then in Austin, I've found that it's such a warm and welcoming design community. I have found that it is not
Mhm.
um, that competitive sense that I felt in some of the larger cities. It's not that way at all. We all want to help each other. This is a small town. Design is a small industry. Everyone knows everyone. I've found some really great other designers who are always willing to share trade references and just bounce ideas. I've got some great friends that I just am like, the other night I was looking at a space plan and I was like a little unsure of myself and I had a friend that I texted. I was like, "What do you think of this?" And within 2 minutes, she's like, "Yes, go for it." So
Yeah.
I feel like I've got a really great network of people who I can, rely on if I really need another gut check. And I love doing the same for them as well.
Yeah.
I love being a champion for others in this industry. If someone else wins, that's a win for all of us. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, it
Absolutely.
all elevates the industry as a whole,
exactly.
all
Yeah.
helping each other. Yep.
And also helps put Austin more on the map for being
Mhm.
an center of design. I moved here, I thought it was the end of my career. No, Austin is booming. There's so much great design happening here and everyone should know about it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, talking about great design, you, I hear, are a fan of vintage and antique pieces. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So tell us about your favorite round top finds.
Yes. Okay. Well, first I have to say, when I started in the hospitality design world, we never got to go antiquing. The process just doesn't allow for it. Financially, time, you just don't get to do it. And so I would dream about the day that I could get to go antiquing and call it work. So I just have to say I recognize how grateful I am that I get to do this. But yeah, so when I moved here, that was like the biggest perk to moving to Austin. We'd be near Round Top. So yeah, I've been to Round Top probably at least 20 times by now.
Wow.
Um, I love going so much. The first time I moved here, I was really intimidated by going, and I do photography on the side, and I saw another Austin designer needed a photographer to follow her at Round Top, and
Mhm.
I ended up getting the job, and she kind of introduced me into the Round Top world. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. That was Claire Zinniger. Thanks, Claire,
Aw.
uh, for taking me along that first time. But yeah, gosh, my favorite Round Top find would probably be the DS11 Desed patchwork curved sofa we bought this fall for our project in Sun Valley. I'm really excited about that piece.
Awesome.
I've always loved it and it's an investment piece for sure. So I didn't think that I would have a client who would be willing to go there, but I'm so excited that I do. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Okay, well, you'll have to take us to Round Top sometime because
Yes,
it is
absolutely.
not. I mean, we've gone before, but I definitely don't know the ropes. And I
Yeah.
feel like coming from someone who does, I always hear people talk about how it's such an amazing experience and they have so much fun. So it would be so cool to go sometime with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I tell people like designer or not, someone who enjoys design and antiquing, it's important to me to go at least 2 times every season because I learned so much every time I go. The first few times I went, I had no money. I wasn't buying anything and I'd go on my weekends because I was working during the week. I would just go look around, take pictures of what was interesting to me. If there was a label of who made it, I would take a picture of that. If there wasn't a label, I would just chat with the dealer. Hey, where'd this come from? What's the story? Who's the maker? They love telling you about their finds.
Yeah.
I would write it all down and then I would get home that night and I'd go on First Dibs and Cherish and I'd search every maker, all the places that they came from. And I really started to learn what do I like and what don't I like? What am I gravitating to? And that was honestly the number one way I figured out what my aesthetic is.
Yeah.
Because I would start learning who these makers are. And now that I'm in the residential space, it's really important that I know about these makers, where things came from, their value, how their value holds. Is this an investment piece that will give us a return in the end? All of that is super important to me to know. So obviously it's fun, but it's really educational, I think. So if you're at all interested and you're not planning on spending money, it is still worth going.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, I think that's honestly kind of a misconception about interior design as a whole, that they think that a lot of people think that it's just fun all day and we're just picking out pretty things. But in reality, there's a lot of knowledge and education that comes behind that, and a lot of technical details that we're working through. And like you say, knowing whether something is an investment piece or how to coach a client through those decisions is a big thing. What do you feel is the biggest misconception about interior design as a whole?
I mean, I totally agree with that. 100%. I struggle with what to post on Instagram because I want people to realize how much time goes into all these details and technical experience. Like, if a lot of people in our industry charge an hourly rate, and it's not just the hour they spent, it is the decades of knowledge that they have with them. So that maybe it only takes them 10 minutes to make that decision because they've spent so many years educating and learning about all the things that go into that decision. So yeah, I think that's definitely a misconception. And I think there's a lot to be said about working under others and learning from them for a long time before starting your own thing. You don't know what you don't know. And I mean, even when I went to Fern, I had, I think, 8 years of experience at that point. And then working with her, I mean, there were so many things that I just didn't even know. I did, like, some of the consultants that we work with, they just have an entire world. I mean, AV, there is an entire world of audiovisual out there that if you're at that level of a project that you're putting in, but if you're not there, you just don't even know it exists. So yeah, there's so many technical parts of our job, and a pretty picture is a pretty picture, but we could spend hours telling you all the crazy things that had to happen to make that picture look the way that it does.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point. And I think that in our industry, people just don't understand all of the intricate details that go into our job and the things that we have to know. And like you said, the years and years of experience that are going into that 1 hour, like that's such a good point. And I love that. But so I want to go just a little bit deeper here. We've obviously heard about kind of your different jobs and what's gotten you here to owning your own business. But I want people to understand kind of what makes you who you are today. So tell us about a defining moment in your life, something that really changed you, changed how you looked at the world, changed how you felt about life, like something that really defined who you are, kind of put us in that place.
This is a good question. Gosh, defined who I am. So I mean, I'm one of 5 kids. 3 of us live abroad, and travel's just always been super important to us. We were very much a middle class family, but we always prioritized travel, and it was like a requirement for all of us to study abroad. Obviously, we were totally fine with that, studying abroad. The best experience of my life. But yeah, I mean, I would say that like studying abroad kind of changed the game for me because in my undergrad, I was at Mizzou, which is, a big school. I was originally there for journalism. I changed to interior design. I had this like inferior feeling of being in an artistic degree, but at like a big school. I kind of was like, shoot, I should be at an art school. Like, what am I doing here? I'm trying to do a creative endeavor and I'm, at just like a big college in the Midwest. But my study abroad experience was at the Accademia Italiana in Florence. It was literally across the street from the Pitti Palace. That like the interior design studio windows opened up to the Pitti Palace. Like, gosh, what is life? And it was an art school with students from around the world. And I met some of my very best friends who I'm actually visiting one next week. I met some of my very best friends there who are all creatives. I'm actually the only interior designer in the group, but we were all there for different creative endeavors. And the bond that we had from studying in a foreign country, this was before the iPhone. So we couldn't just pull up our phone to look at Google Maps or anything. So that like experience of traveling together and learning, how to get through the world together. And I learned how to cook with those girls. We still, when we get together, we make all of our meals together. But that was kind of my first experience being surrounded by other creatives who do different creative outlets. And nothing lights me up more than being surrounded by other creatives doing other super, super rad things. Like I love it so much. So yeah, that was probably like the most main defining moment for me.
Yeah. How long were you in Florence for?
So it was January to May, and most people by May were ready to go home.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was sobbing, being like, "You're tearing me out of this place. I am not leaving. Like, why would I ever leave? This is the most magical experience of my life." I haven't been back because I'm scared for the emotions that are just gonna ooze out of me. Like,
So I did my study abroad in Florence as well.
No
And
way.
it was definitely like one of the best experiences of my life. I have gone back and twice since then, and it doesn't even compare. Like
really?
Now I'll say this, like I still remember like the path from my apartment to the school and all of these things. And I could do it in my sleep. Like I remember it so vividly, but there's something about that experience of being with, people that are going through the same thing as you and you're all experiencing it together. It just creates this bond that is like unlike any other. And when you go back and I took my husband there and I was showing him all the places that we went to, and this was the restaurant that we ate at, and this like there are so many things and so many stories, and you just want to share it with the people that you shared it with once before, and then it's kind of almost this sad feeling of like I'm never going to have that experience again, and it's I don't know, it's so bittersweet because like such amazing memories and so many things that I will just never forget. But it's like when you think about like the good old days, you don't know at the time that those are the good old days, right? It's like you're in the moment and you're like, I'm having so much fun and this is so great, and then life just happens. And then you look back and you're like, oh my God, like I'm never going to have that again. And that's so sad. But
that's exactly why I haven't gone back. But I still do get together with that group of girls and we reminisce and we are all cheering each other. We're all doing just such cool, different things. And the community we have together and the support is just amazing. So
I hope you never lose that. That's so special. Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, looking back, obviously travel was a big part of your life. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to find their passion in life?
I would say, so I have a lot of different creative outlets, and only one currently is a monetary one, interior design. And it took me a little while to figure that one out. So I would say if you're trying to figure out what your creative passion is, don't put so much pressure on thinking that it needs to be providing you income. Just seek it out. Do it. If you want to just do it for yourself, see if it brings you joy, start there. Just start with doing something just for yourself to bring you joy and to light you up. And if down the road you want to trial bringing in money with that passion, go for it. But if you decide, I don't love this as much when an income is tied to it, then that's okay. You can say no to doing that and you can just keep it just for you. There's something to be said about having creative outlets that are truly just for you. So don't put too much pressure on thinking that it needs to be your entire career or something. If it brings you joy, just start there.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you said outlets, plural, because I think that there's also a misconception that you have to have one passion in life, but there could be multiple that bring you joy and fulfillment, and it's okay to have more. You know, you could have many, and even better that you have figured that out. Like, how lucky to have the knowledge that you know what fulfills you.
Totally. And I think having, different creative outlets also helps bring other viewpoints to our careers as designers. Obviously, I love to travel. I love photography. I shoot film photography, but for fun now. I don't do it for others anymore. So the experiences that I have doing it, those other things bring a whole new viewpoint to the work that I do. So I think that it can create a much more dynamic design if you're also filling your cup in other ways.
Completely agree.
Well, Allie, thank you so much for being with us today. We are so happy to just hear a little bit about your story. I wish we had so much more time because there's so much more I want to know. But if our listeners want to get in touch with you at all, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yes. So my website is www.studioburgoon.com. And I'm also on Instagram at Studio Burgoon. And you can email me, Allie, ALI, at studioburgoon.com.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We really, really appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing more and going to Round Top together. It's going to happen.
Yes. Let's plan it. It's coming up next month. Hit me up. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
As we wrap up another inspiring episode of 100 Lunches, we want to extend our gratitude to our incredible guest today, Allie Burgoon Nolan of Studio Burgoon. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and bringing a piece of your world to our virtual lunch table.
Until next time, stay curious, keep dreaming big, and remember, the best conversations are always better with a side of something delicious.